Today is a day that I've been looking forward to for over the past 3 years, because every once in a while, from time to time in healthcare, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything. At EnsoData, we feel incredibly fortunate to be able to introduce another set of these groundbreaking products to the world today. In 2017, we introduced EnsoSleep, the artificial intelligence-based sleep scoring tool for clinicians, with our approach at EnsoData of creating simple, easy-to-use, powerful software that lives in the cloud, is interoperable with leading sleep testing devices, and uses a state-of-the-art Waveform AI engine to analyze data. Well, EnsoSleep didn't just change the way clinicians interact with sleep data. It changed the way that we, the sleep medicine industry, could interact with patients. Patients who need help. Patients with an opportunity for better sleep health. Since then, the combined impact of EnsoSleep's AI and our partners in the sleep medicine community has been pretty amazing. First, the clinicians that use it have loved their experience, leading to a 4.8 out of 5-star rating on Capterra and a 97% customer retention rate all time. Second, it's used by some of the largest and most well-respected provider organizations in the world to help to increase patient access to care, including home sleep testing, screening, and education, and downstream, therapy outcomes and experiences as well. And third, what we're most proud of here at EnsoData is our impact. We've helped sleep medicine clinicians reach and diagnose over 400,000 patients so far, and we are adding nearly 250,000 more patients every year. However, in sleep medicine, there are many factors that can get in the way of providing the best care and the best outcomes for your patients. Let's face it, reimbursements have dramatically changed, and not for the better. Patients in clinic are increasingly complex. The need for home testing and virtual care continues to grow. The quality and standard of evidence are being challenged for major OSA therapies. Patient expectations have grown more demanding as healthcare gets more and more consumerized. Clinical staff are overworked now more than ever before, and open roles are hard to fill too. These challenges can make it feel like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. And from our experience with over 400 clinics across the United States, we think artificial intelligence will be a critical part of helping to solve these problems. Meanwhile, AI adoption has been growing in healthcare broadly. This 2020 graphic is from Nature's Journal of Digital Medicine and shows a systematic review of FDA-cleared artificial intelligence software. That's us, second one from the top, the orange one. Despite significant progress in AI across medical specialties generally, there's been little in the way of new AI technology to assist with sleep disorders and sleep apnea specifically. Until now, that is. Today, we're introducing 3 products that go even further to address these major challenges. And a few years from now, when we look back, we might say that today marked the beginning of something new for clinicians and their patients. That today marked the beginning of the next generation of artificial intelligence technology for sleep and sleep medicine. The first one is an advanced AI scoring software for adult patients, pediatric patients, and the sickest patients who need help. The second is a revolutionary new set of AI capabilities that improve the fundamental reliability of home sleep apnea testing and sleep measurement at home. And the third is a truly next-generation, web-based sleep study viewing, editing, and reporting tool that is optimized for a seamless clinician experience. I'll run through those 3 again. An advanced AI scoring tool for adult, pediatric, and the sickest patients. New AI capabilities for reliable home sleep apnea testing and sleep measurement at home. And a truly next-generation, web-based sleep study viewing, editing, and reporting tool. I bet you can see where this is going. These are not 3 separate products. This is one product. And to further build upon what we've started, and to keep it simple, as we like to do, we offer these products as a set of interchangeable modules so that you can choose exactly what you need. Cleared only weeks ago by the FDA, you can find our updated indications for use statement, our product performance data, and our EnsoSleep white paper all on our website, conveniently accessible for those who would like to dive a bit deeper. Now with that, let's see what the new EnsoSleep is all about. First, with regards to the advanced AI scoring tool for adult patients, pediatric patients, and the sickest patients who need help, there are 3 things that I'd particularly love to highlight today. First, new performance. We have improved the scoring performance of our core Waveform AI engine. Second, new patient populations. We've expanded indications for adult patients and now also for pediatric patients ages 13 and up. And finally, new event types and subtypes that help to get a greater depth and breadth of data to better support those sickest sleep patients. Now, before we dive into what's new with EnsoSleep, let's look at what's always made EnsoSleep different from auto scoring. EnsoSleep is an AI and machine learning based tool. It lives in the cloud with more than 850,000 sleep studies. And it's clinically validated. But we can't just say that it's great, we're going to show you. Prior to launching the initial version of EnsoSleep, the problem with auto scoring was twofold. First, we and many others in sleep medicine felt that the legacy generations of auto scoring technology were simply not smart enough. In fact, at a deeper level, I'm not sure if it was possible for traditional software development approaches, specifically approaches that don't involve machine learning and artificial intelligence, to be capable of solving such a complex problem and challenge as PSG sleep scoring is. When you think about just how much natural variability there is in the real world, you can list out dozens of possible challenges. Noisy, missing or incomplete data, sensors popping off, sweat artifacts, variability in sleep scoring and score reliability, digital and electrical characteristics from a variety of devices, dynamic signal conditions, and more. No matter how hard one tries, it's incredibly difficult to imagine reliably accounting for all of these sources of variability using rules that are manually programmed line by line with an if-then approach to be able to work well for all or most patients. Second, while AI has shown tremendous promise to address these challenges and to be able to provide consistent and generalizable performance for a broad class of patients, the clinical validation performance evidence for AI has been somewhat limited to date. And that's why today we'll be sharing not just 1, not 2, but 3 clinical performance validation data sets and clinical patient samples that we analyzed, which represents, to the very best of our knowledge, the largest clinical validation study performed on AI to date that were reviewed by the FDA. These results allowed us to reinvent AI scoring again. So to aid clinicians with sleep studies, EnsoSleep uses Waveform AI to analyze physiologic signals and automatically score sleep study results. That includes all 5 major sleep stages, 6 respiratory event types and subtypes, 3 physiologic analysis event types, 4 home sleep testing, arousal events, movement events, cardiac events, and the AASM recommended sleep study report indices. This AI scoring and analysis supports interoperability, so clinicians can conveniently review and edit results and reports with the same softwares, integrations, and workflows EnsoSleep always has and will continue to support, along with the new and additional cloud workflows we bring you today. To clinically validate the performance of EnsoSleep, we utilize 3 diverse, representative, de-identified clinical study samples. These clinical samples were made up of patients from 4 major sleep apnea disease state severity groups, 7 different comorbid and confounding medical condition groups of interest, 5 relevant and confounding medication groups of interest, and 7 identified demographic groups of interest. In aggregate, our validation study analyzed 3 100-patient clinical performance validation study samples that were made up of 2 adult samples and 1 pediatric sample that included 47 patients in our indicated age range of 13 and older out of 100 pediatric patients. In total, 300 studies were scored by 3 double-blinded RPSGTs, and a 2/3 majority scoring consensus was constructed for comparison from a grand total of 900 sleep studies that were individually scored across all study samples. Using these 3 samples, EnsoSleep Performance was clinically validated in 20 individual event type experiments and across 6 different AHI thresholds, including 6 sleep staging experiments, 11 scoring event experiments, and 3 physiologic analyses event types, as well as 6 AHI subgroups in adult and pediatric patients. Our new results were compared to the 2017 FDA-cleared clinical validation performance results for the prior version of EnsoSleep. Let's see how we did. We understand that simple bar graphs of positive agreement, negative agreement, and overall agreement, also known as sensitivity, specificity, and accuracy, well, leave a lot to be desired. We created a 3D, 3-dimensional data visualizations for sleep staging and scoring events that not only allow you to visualize sample level performance, but also all the way down to epic by epic level performance for each individual patient in each study sample. These visualizations will be available for those interested after our event today too. The yellow dots here represent instances where the EnsoSleep sleep staging differed from that of the scoring consensus that we compared to. The colors categorize the apnea severity to help visualize relationships between sleep apnea and sleep architecture. Here, the left shows total sleep time for each patient for the 2/3 majority and for Enso scoring. And the plots in our 3-dimensional end zone show the cumulative distribution across all 5 stages over all patients at that particular time of night, say midnight. For the adult patient sample, we achieved 86.6% agreement across all 5 sleep stages based on 84,408 epochs of sleep. Compared to our prior version, our performance was greater in sensitivity, specificity, and accuracy for wake, N2, REM, and total events. Those results were statistically significant for REM in adults. Isn't it interesting to see the gradient of the change in disrupted sleep architecture and sleep fragmentation that's associated with sleep apnea severity? We can see it in these plots. Specifically, the more red a patient is, the less consolidated their sleep segments tend to be, and the less we see in prevalence of deep sleep and REM stages. We achieved substantially equivalent performance for pediatric patients as well. In the pediatric patient sample, we achieved 89.6% agreement across all 5 sleep stages, looking at 38,568 epochs of sleep. Compared to our prior version in adults, performance for pediatrics was greater in sensitivity, specificity, and accuracy for wake, N1, N2, N3, REM, and total events, with statistically significant results for wake, N3, and total events. You'll notice a lot more green in this second data visualization, as pediatric AHIs tend to fall into a lower range than the AHIs of adults, and thus they fall on the less severe side of our sleep apnea color spectrum. We value high evidentiary standards, and we wanted to demonstrate the reproducibility and the reliability of our performance. So we analyzed a 3rd sample from an additional multi-site organization, and we validated similarly substantially equivalent performance on the 2nd adult cohort as well. In the respiratory rate adult patient sample, we achieved 90.3% agreement across all 5 sleep stages, looking at 92,457 epochs of sleep. Compared to the prior version in adults, our performance was greater for sensitivity, specificity, and accuracy for wake, N2, N3, REM, and total, with statistically significant results for wake, N2, REM, and total. In both the adult patients and now in pediatric patients too, we've made significant progress in our core sleep staging and sleep measurement performance. Now, let's shift gears specifically to scoring events. In this image, the height of each polygon represents the total number of events in each 30-second epoch. The colors represent different compositions and combinations of events. Turquoise, blue, and gold tie to respiratory, arousal, or movement events only. The light blue, pink, and light green represent a combination of 2 of respiratory arousal, movement arousal, and respiratory movement combinations respectively. And the red color represents an epoch where each of those 3 event families were all present and all represented in that particular epoch. The bars on the left represent the total number of events for each patient. From left to right, that includes total events, respiratory events, arousals, and movement events. As you can see, the trend views are organized from high to low in the total event count from top to bottom. For these same colors, we also provided a breakdown of the sample level distribution of the event combinations and color mixtures so you can see it for the whole group, along with the sample level event counts right above the legend. For the adult sample, we achieved over 90% overall agreement for all 11 scoring event types analyzed, based on 84,408 epochs of sleep. Compared to the prior version of EnsoSleep, performance was greater in sensitivity, specificity, and accuracy for sleep disordered breathing events, hypopneas, obstructive sleep apneas, central sleep apneas, and arousals. The results were statistically significant for sleep disordered breathing, OSA, and arousals. It's also been interesting to observe the gradient of shapes and colors and how they help to show, in some ways, the compounding effect of sleep apnea with more colors and taller peaks in patients where we see the greatest severity and increasing severity. Taking another look at the same data, we can see there's a wide variety in disease spectrum severity in the patients sleep medicine clinicians see on a daily basis. And that's part of why we're excited to have added support for new event types, including Cheyne-Stokes respiration, periodic breathing episodes, respiratory rate, and more. These event types are associated with chronic comorbid conditions like congestive heart failure, COPD, and others, providing support for the increasingly complex patients in lab who may require advanced titrations and more nuanced care. In contrast, looking at the same visualization for our pediatric patient sample from the side shows, on a relative scale, just how much more severe the adult OSA population can be in comparison. Interestingly, the distribution of arousal, movement, and respiratory event-only epochs were also seen to be very different between patients in pediatrics and adults in the visualizations. Pediatrics are at 45%, 18%, and 19%, compared to a more uniformly distributed 28%, 22%, and 26% for adults. And furthermore, this also reinforces the importance of a clinically validated performance for pediatric patients specifically, as AHIs are clinically evaluated on a finer scale of resolution where therapies are considered for patients. So, for the pediatric patient sample, we achieved substantially equivalent performance, over 90% overall agreement for all 11 scoring event types analyzed, based on the 38,568 sleep epochs. Compared to our prior version of EnsoSleep in adults, performance was greater in sensitivity, specificity, and accuracy for sleep disordered breathing, hypopnea, central sleep apnea, arousals, and RERA events, with statistically significant results for sleep disordered breathing, hypopneas, arousals, and RERAs. In adult patients, and now in pediatric patients as well, we've made significant progress, both in our core sleep scoring events and with the addition of new event types and subtypes that help more with complex patients too. Clinicians can rely on EnsoSleep to provide a consistent score for all patients ages 13 and up. And finally, from the micro to the macro, all of those scoring events and sleep stages directly influence the apnea-hypopnea index that's used to diagnose OSA severity. As such, our clinical validation study also analyzed sleep apnea diagnostic agreement performance across 6 different AHI thresholds. Those thresholds included mild sleep apnea, mild during REM, moderate sleep apnea, moderate during REM, and for pediatrics, the additional AHIs of 1 and 10. This visualization shows the AHI from EnsoSleep and from the expert 2/3 majority scoring consensus. Those are colored by sleep apnea disease state severity, where one can observe the median absolute difference between the EnsoSleep AHI and the consensus AHI was 1.7 AHI points in the adult cohort, 0.87 in the pediatric cohort, 1.2 across both cohorts. In the adult patient sample, analyzing sleep apnea severity, we observed 94% sensitivity and 89% specificity for mild sleep apnea, 94% sensitivity and 96% specificity for moderate sleep apnea, for an overall agreement of 93% and 95% for mild and moderate sleep apnea in adults, respectively. we achieved substantially equivalent performance in the pediatric patient sample for sleep apnea severity as well, demonstrating 91%, 94%, 90.5%, and 97% overall agreement at AHI thresholds of 1, 5, 10, and 15 respectively. This showed greater performance in sensitivity, specificity, and accuracy for mild sleep apnea in adults and at an AHI threshold of 1 in pediatrics, when the new EnsoSleep was compared to the prior version in adults. We're proud to share the depth and breadth of new clinical performance validation results for adults, pediatrics, and some of the sickest patients too, and to see where EnsoSleep's advanced AI capabilities have expanded to further help sleep medicine clinicians achieve our shared mission of quality and excellence in patient care. The second of these major enhancements made to EnsoSleep that we're introducing today comes on the home sleep testing front. Today, we're excited to present a revolutionary new set of AI capabilities for reliable home sleep apnea testing and sleep measurement at home. First, more breadth of data from HSTs as we introduce the PPG-based respiratory rate, along with Cheyne-Stokes respiration, periodic breathing, and more for home sleep tests. Second, more depth of data from HSTs, highlighting events for HSATs, including epoch by epoch sleep-wake stages and sleep-wake architecture. And third, new capabilities that can fundamentally improve the reliability of home sleep testing and diagnosis at home, including one of the features we're especially excited to debut today, our EnsoTST, a PPG-based total sleep time for home sleep testing. These new capabilities are the result of years of AI and machine learning research and development, prototyping, testing, and ultimately clinical performance validation. But why these? And how do they work exactly? Our rationale was pretty simple, with 3 primary factors. First, we want to meet clinician and customer demand as we continuously strive to help more clinics and in new ways. Second, home testing includes fewer signals, meaning we needed to create more breadth of data. This meant new respiratory rate, sleep-wake stages, and architecture to provide more validated data from every home sleep test. And third, total sleep time is needed to calculate the AHI, and home sleep tests don't include an EEG. The problem with this is multifold. If total recording time was used, it would tend to overestimate the total sleep time, as TRT tends to be a little bit bigger than the TST. If it's inferred from lights on or lights off, sleep onset and the wake time may be biased, posing some risk for over or under determination of the total sleep time. Manual scoring of epoch by epoch sleep stages based on visual interpretation of HST respiratory data is challenging and time-consuming. In fact, prior technologies have also shown the problem of sleep staging without EEG to be quite difficult. So, obtaining a reliable estimate of the total sleep time for home testing in the absence of EEG data is necessary to obtaining an accurate AHI and severity categorization for patients, whether that's manually scored or AI-assisted and reviewed. In summary, getting a clinically validated total sleep time in HSATs is important for diagnostic accuracy for clinicians and patients, and in some scenarios is also relevant to appropriate billing and coding as well. So, on the last point specifically about total sleep time and sleep stages in home sleep apnea tests, if you've ever spent an afternoon or even a few evenings thinking about the question, if I had to choose just one respiratory or cardiopulmonary signal to measure sleep in the absence of EEG data to stage a sleep test at home, which one would you choose? Just one signal for a single channel approach minimized for accessibility and interoperability. We've spent some time thinking about this. Our approach? We chose the PPG, the photoplethysmogram. In short, we chose the PPG signal for its near universal accessibility, its temporal richness, and the cardiopulmonary physiologic depth its data encapsulates. PPG stands among the most ubiquitous, continuously recorded signals both in HST and PSG studies as well as in consumer sleep technologies and smart wearables. With that rationale in mind, let's get into the data. Its most prominent and conventional use case today in HST is to calculate blood oxygen saturation, or the SpO2 values. Those are used in sleep studies to qualify sleep-disordered breathing events based on the 3% or 4% or greater oxygen desaturation scoring rules we're all familiar with. To this, the first thing we added is respiratory rate based on PPG. Some researchers have gone so far as to call the respiratory rate the neglected vital sign. In multiple studies in critical care medicine, the research suggests that adults with a respiratory rate over 20 breaths per minute is probably unwell, and that an adult with a respiratory rate over 24 breaths per minute is likely to be critically ill. So, what respiratory rate threshold value merits action? Ultimately, for each individual patient, their physicians and care teams will know best. And that's why we're excited to contribute to that decision-making with the total sleep time. These findings also emphasize the importance of accuracy in respiratory rate scoring and respiratory rate measurement. For the adult patient sample, we clinically validated performance for scoring respiratory rate with PPG, demonstrating 92% of the 60-second epochs analyzed were within 2 breaths per minute of the expert consensus. We showed a mean absolute error of 0.99 breaths and demonstrated substantially equivalent performance to the effort belt respiratory rate performance. In fact, the results validated both PPG and effort belt respiratory rate values achieved over 90% of the 60-second epochs within 2 breaths per minute and a mean absolute error of less than 1 breath per minute. And there were no statistically significant differences observed between the PPG-based respiratory rate and the effort belt respiratory rate events when compared to 2/3 majority expert scoring. And finally, we added total sleep time based on the PPG. So as not to confuse it with the traditional EEG-based TST EnsoSleep has always supported, we named this one, well, EnsoTST. To provide a reliable EnsoTST, we had to develop and to clinically validate 2 new sets of outputs to do it justice. For the respiratory rate adult patient sample, we achieved substantially equivalent performance for our PPG-based total sleep time and the traditional EEG-based total sleep time when both were compared to expert 2/3 majority scoring of EEG on 92,457 epochs of sleep data. EnsoSleep's epoch by epoch sleep versus wake staging determination for the PPG was clinically validated by demonstrating 89% sensitivity, 92% specificity, and 91% accuracy when compared to expert consensus scoring off of the gold standard PSG. All performance values for epoch by epoch PPG sleep-wake stages exhibited strong agreement and high concordance with EEG-based sleep staging. In fact, we achieved a global minimum PPG sleep-wake performance statistic of 89%, which was only a 4% absolute difference versus the 93% for EEG-based sleep versus wake. So, now that we've combed through every epoch of respiratory data standard to the home sleep tests, and we've set the foundation for the inputs to calculate the total sleep time, let's see how we did. We've already covered some of the major reasons a reliable TST is important for getting an accurate AHI estimate from home sleep tests. This visualization shows total sleep time from EnsoSleep and from the expert 2/3 majority scoring consensus, and it's colored by sleep apnea disease state severity. Here, one can observe a median absolute difference between the EnsoSleep and EnsoTST compared to the expert 2/3 majority consensus PSG EEG-based total sleep time of 3.5 minutes in the adult cohort, 3.7 minutes in the pediatric cohort, 4.7 minutes in the respiratory rate cohort, and 4 minutes across all 3 cohorts. 227 of the 300 patients analyzed fell within 9 minutes total of the consensus TST estimate. In the adult patient respiratory rate sample, analyzing the PPG-based TST, the EnsoTST specifically, we clinically validated a mean difference of 5.3 minutes, less than 6 minutes, when compared to the consensus of 3 scores staging off of EEG. So, Overall, we demonstrated strong agreement and high concordance with the macro, the manually scored PSG, EEG-based TST, and the micro, the epic by epic staging analysis that feeds into it and is designed for home sleep testing specifically. Let's dive even deeper. Remember this slide? We used this visualization to help introduce our clinical study samples earlier. We wanted to use it once again as a reference point. In addition to the baseline accuracy and performance of the Enso TST, we also wanted to analyze if there were any differences in performance associated with our demographic variables. We believe artificial intelligence must be ethically designed for equity and performance from the beginning, so we've created a data visualization to help us see that performance. Our additional analysis similarly validated that there were no significant differences, biases, or deviations in our PPG-based TST measurement performance that were based on age, sex, AHI severity, among many other demographic factors. Those factors included comorbid conditions that are strongly associated with sleep apnea of particular interest, like congestive heart failure, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, depression, obesity, and stroke. We call those the Big Seven. This further provided evidence to support the consistency, safety, and effectiveness and equity of performance for a broad class of patients, the patients that you help, and their comfortable and convenient sleep testing at home. We're proud to share our clinical validation performance results and new home sleep testing capabilities with you today. And we're even more excited to get them in your hands and to see the real-world impact they can make on your clinical practice and on your patients. And lastly, let's talk about the Enso Viewer. It's interoperable, it's web-based, it provides maybe the first truly consumer-esque user experience, like the software we all get to use at home, the software we use for fun. The interface is easy to use and has snappy performance, which is really hard to do with this much data. It's fully optimized for a seamless clinician user experience and clinical collaboration across organizations, both large and small. And it's a joy to use. In our beta testing, 100% of the users wanted to continue using the Enso Viewer after the testing ended. And the most interesting piece of that was, well, we provided no instructions for use in that testing. Even though it was so easy to use and no training was needed, we still offer dedicated customer support, service, and implementation specialists because we're passionate about our customer success. In 2007, Apple launched the iPhone. Steve Jobs shared this quote from Alan Kay during that launch. People who are really serious about software should make their own hardware. At that time, in 2007, I would have agreed. I might have still agreed 10 years later, in 2017, when we launched the first EnsoSleep. But now, here in 2021, I know that I feel differently. Steve Jobs is someone I really look up to. But respectfully, the approach we take, I now disagree. I think that people who are really serious about software should make it work with everything. And by work with everything, we mean working with all hardware. And by working with all hardware, we mean all PSG and all HSAT devices. Working with everything. That's how we feel at EnsoData, and that's just what we've done. With more than 15 integrated devices, easy to access to, patients from any device, from any facility, by any clinician, anywhere. Data is no longer inside of a box next to the bedside. Data is no longer tethered to a PC. Now, data is accessible from any authorized computer, mobile phone, or tablet, from any device that supports the modern web browser. We set out to create something that was so efficient, intuitive, and optimized that you could view, edit, and score records for all of your PSGs, all of your HSTs, all of your patients, all of your facilities, with all of your colleagues, finally, all in one place. We provide global summaries, generating a complete night's view and trending into a patient's sleep health. we provide comprehensive, easily accessible diagnostic reports, data-driven insights, and data visualizations in sleep health and sleep study reports. I want to tell you a story about how this all started. When we started, we were the new kids on the block. The odds were against us. Everyone had tried auto scoring and had a pretty poor experience with it. We had to get any support that we could. Some said, "Who's that very sweaty gentleman that talks too fast?" Sleep 2017 was our first presentation at a sleep conference. A little green behind the ears and fresh out of graduate school for biomedical engineering, I walked into a football field-sized room, packed to the gills, standing room only. My mouth dried up so instantly, so fast, I literally had to run out of the room to get water. By the time I got back to the room and up to the podium for my presentation, my water and my reflexes were all gone. My mouth was already as dry as a desert again. But we pressed onward. And since then, with more than 20 peer-reviewed scientific publications at the intersection of AI, sleep, and healthcare, we've not only laid the foundation to create a greater level of access to high-quality, affordable sleep medicine services for patients everywhere, we've also helped to advance the state of scientific knowledge and our understanding of the role and influence of sleep on human health and disease. So thank you. Thank you to all those who believed. This is our chance to return that favor for you. So if I wasn't already, I'm starting to get even more fired up. I'm starting to feel like I'm ready to go. To reiterate, the challenges are multiple. Decreasing reimbursements, complex in-lab patients, the need for reliable home sleep testing, the consumerization of healthcare, and the challenges with finding clinical staff. If we can create more time for patients and less time on data, that translates into opportunities for more patient engagement, education, and empathy. That translates to more time for the clinician voice and the patient voice in the sleep center office, whether that's physical or virtual. That can translate not just to better access, but better outcomes too. We want to hear more from all voices. So I have just one question for you, sleep medicine. Are you fired up? Are you ready to go? Sleep apnea is 80% undiagnosed and untreated. Even worse, in rural, critical access, and underserved communities. It's time for us to finish what we started. Together, let's make sleep health better for 100% of the patients out there. We've always tried to do that at EnsoData since the very, very beginning, and we always will. So thank you very, very much for being part of our journey. Sincerely, from the bottom of our hearts.
Let's go.